Hello, everyone, and welcome to Discover Rising Tides, How the Outside Makes the Inside Better. I am Jeanne Gallagher, and I am here with our friend Denise and our longevity concierge. And Denise, as always, has some really great topics, and we're talking about health span versus lifespan.
Yes.
So,
And
what do you have going on?
well, this is interesting. So, health span and lifespan are absolutely not the same thing. One matters more.
Mm,
Okay. And what prompted me to start thinking about this again, obviously, is the longevity concierge. I'm thinking, long term. I talk with women in midlife and menopause, but, at some point, you get through your symptoms, but you're still living and you're still doing things. So life is this long, kind of stream of time, right? But when I think about a situation that occurred in just within the last couple of weeks, health span really started to become really evident, like why this is so much more
mm,
important than that lifespan, right? So we've been, basically we've all been told to focus on, living longer and all that. But it's really about how well we live during those years, right? And I went to see my 81-year-old aunt in England a couple of weeks ago.
mm,
And literally, I got back from that trip and then had lunch with a friend of mine who's 84. Um, and these women are the example of health span, lifespan, right?
mm.
One of them is just completely existing, like she's breathing, but that's about it. The other one is absolutely thriving. And, when you think about it, this health span, is it luck? No, it's not.
Mm-mm. I
It's
don't think so.
lifestyle.
Yeah,
So, what is health span? Essentially, that refers to the period of time in our life that we are in good health, that we're free from significant illness or disability. Right? Think of all that, like most of us think when we're young, we're healthy and we're vibrant. That's what we're looking for the extended period of time of our life, right? Lifespan is just the total number of years that you're actually here on this planet. So in essence, you could have a lifespan that's really long, but a health span that's
short.
relatively short.
Yeah.
um, because of our standard American diet, the fact that we sit so much
Hmm.
in front of a computer or in front of the television, whatever it may be, right? People don't get up and change the channel on the television anymore, or go down, walk down to the shop that's at the corner. We drive, right? So these two women, my 81-year-old aunt, who now she's been legally blind her whole life and has never really done much.
Mm.
She wasn't an exerciser. She really didn't go out on her own much because she's legally blind. So when her parents were alive, when my grandparents were alive, she had someone to take her, but she was with her aging parents. So where were they going? She was also somebody who loved her cookies and candy. Right. So here's a woman. Okay. So she started out, granted, not a great option. She is blind. Um, but that doesn't stop everybody.
Mm-mm.
Stopped her. Right. So when I went to see her recently, it was really heartbreaking because I hadn't seen her in a handful of, well, maybe two handful of years, 10 years. And she looked like a 100-year-old lady, like she was gaunt and like her face, and she had this yellowish tinge to her because she's blind, so they don't open the blinds in her house, so it's dark all the time. She literally can't go from the bed to the chair without assistance.
Mm.
And because she's blind, she listens to the television, but now that she's in her 80s and she's starting to lose her hearing, she won't wear a hearing aid.
Hmm.
Why, I don't know. Vain, I don't know. Nobody can see, whatever. Um, and so she has a television blaring. So this is her existence,
Hmm.
right? And then my friend, um, who's here in Rochester, went to visit her, and it's impossible to nail her down because she's busy. She's walking the dog and she's mowing the lawn and she's got like 4 acres of lawn to mow, and she's playing bridge, and she's doing all this stuff. She's in great shape, all of this.
Mm-hmm.
So
Her
this,
body and her mind are engaged.
yes.
Mm.
So this to me was incredibly eye-opening, because these were people that I know.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing you see people on TV, you see people at the clinic. I live 6 miles from Mayo Clinic, right? We see people in that stage in life. So these two stories were very personal.
Mm-hmm.
And really, this health span piece is really, it's about mobility, purpose, independence,
Mm-hmm.
and let's be honest, some joy. I mean, just surviving is not
Right.
living.
This one's really important to me as well. And I think that, maybe what we need to do is to take a deeper dive on this at another time, because this is so important, and you can't turn the clock back. So in my head, what I keep thinking of is how I'm moving today is going to directly affect the next 20 to 30, hopefully 30 years, so that
Yep.
I can be in my 90s and be active. And that's the component of putting the work in now. And a couple of shows ago, which is really uh, related to this conversation, I had Arlene Santiago on, and she works with seniors in movement, and getting people to be able to move and not fall over, and to be able to get from the floor to standing. And there's a time where, unfortunately, the win or the accomplishment when you are later on in your life is actually being able to get up off the floor. And I say unfortunately because that's an important skill, but unfortunately, if that is exactly what happens, that's all that happens, congratulations, but there could be so much more.
Right. And I think people think, aging happens overnight. Like they just woke up one day and they were
Yeah.
old and they had these problems. It really is about daily choices.
Hmm.
And to be very honest, when we look at health span, when we, and talk to people, and especially my clients, um, who are mostly in their 50s, um, they think that, yeah, they're fine, whether they're overweight, they're having struggles, whatever it may be. They think that they're not going to lose their vitality or their energy or whatever it is until they're in their 80s.
Hmm.
When the truth is they're losing it today
That's
in their
right.
50s.
But
We just
also
don't.
the message too is that it's not too late, because in our CrossFit class, or not ours, but mine, I've talked about her before. Annie's 94 years old, and Annie goes to CrossFit, and she had fallen a few months, 6 months ago or something, and recovery from that, she was using a walker, but because of the work she had put in before and her attitude and the willingness to put more work in, it did not take her very long to get past that event. And she does burpees.
I love it. I hate
So
burpees. And I love that a 94-year-old
I
lady
hate
is
them
doing
too.
burpees.
They're dumb. They serve a
It's
purpose,
very
but they're dumb.
so
But
true. So
this is where I think that this is just a little short segment here for us to talk about this, but I really think that we should dive into this if you'd like to, and have a conversation, an extended conversation, because this is so important. How do we, in our 50s and 60s, plan for and get our heads straight so that we're, eating right, supplementing correctly, and going and attacking this in the right
yeah.
manner?
Yeah, I think that's really important, because there are so many pieces to this that I think are essential, and it's not just, oh, here's one little tidbit. There really is a full conversation here. I
Hmm.
guess since we're going to do that, let me kind of wrap up with this thought though. What if your 80s and 90s weren't filled with pills and doctor's appointments, but adventures, connections, and confidence?
Mm,
That is what HealthSpan makes possible.
love it. Denise, thank you. We're going to get
You're
back
welcome.
together.
Until next time.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Discover Rising Tides, How the Outside Makes the Inside Better. I am Jeanne Gallagher. And if you are listening to us on your favorite podcast platform and you'd like to see our smiling faces, jump on over to YouTube because we'll be there as well. And I want to welcome Donna Ashton. Hey, Donna, how are you?
Doing great. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Glad to be here.
And Donna's business, Work Less, Make More. I think that's going to resonate with a lot of people. Before we dive in, Donna, give us a little bit of your background, and then we'll learn a little bit more about your business and go from there.
Yeah, I mean, my business just came about as many businesses do, just something that happened on the fly. This was about 15 years ago. I was homeschooling my twins back then who were age 7, and we were using Waldorf education at the time. And I decided to start my own business in the Waldorf homeschooling realm and really created a large following and started doing courses and programs because I didn't have time to do coaching and I didn't have a lot of time for anything, but it worked out that way that I went straight into this one-to-many model. And then years later, I sold that business and started helping others create courses and programs as my business because people just started asking me to show me how you did this and how you don't work that much. And it was really, for about 10 years, I have been doing that. And then felt called to move into something a little bit different over the last few years, even though I'm still a big proponent of not spending 24/7 working and really having time to have your business work for you instead of being strapped to your business so that you can do things. And I have lots of other interests and things that I like to do on the side. So I want my business to support me, yet give me that freedom and that lifestyle of traveling and doing whatever I want, going to the beach and whatever I need to do. So now I'm into a little bit of a shift of helping entrepreneurs move into this new earth model to kind of help them through the rocky times that we're in right now, especially in business. How do we still create clients and do things, but some of that old stuff is feeling very stale, very icky. It's not working anymore. And so how can we embrace some new things that feels more authentic and feels more aligned with ourselves and where we're going as business and as humans in this new earth 5D realm?
I love that. And there is this, I don't know, when you think of somebody when you think, well, the responsibilities of having your own business means that you are identifying yourself 100% as your business. And that means that every waking hour you should be thinking, doing, or, working with or in or on your business, because those three things are different. Working with and working on and working in are three different aspects of how you manage your business. And it can be all encompassing and it can take over our lives, and there's this quality of life piece that gets forgotten because you are self-employed and an entrepreneur. And I've been a financial advisor for 20 years, which is wild to say that it's been that long. And there was a shift about 5 or 6 years ago when I realized I didn't have to be working as hard or as much as I was. I can be working more efficiently and still get the responsibilities done and take care of everything. It doesn't mean you're sloughing off if you're working less. It means you're working smarter and better, but there's this piece that comes back to you that's
Yeah.
really important.
I think as a culture that we have been, entrenched in going to school Monday through Friday, going to work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, going to university and all of that. And it's really hard to get out of that. I think that the pandemic helped a little to kind of break
Sure.
open. That was like the beginning of, oh, there are different ways we can do work and there are different things we can do. I really only work like 3 days a week. My podcast is called 4-Day Weekends because I really want to spend more days doing the things I love than working. Because even like taking Fridays off, okay, that's fabulous. Why do we have to work more than we play, if you will?
Sure.
I know many people are like, oh, I love my business. It's not like work. That's great. And you can do whatever you want. There's no right or wrong when it comes to this, but I feel like it's time to break that mold and start shifting into doing things differently. And as solopreneurs and work at home people, now there's not that delineation of I go to work, then I leave and I come home and I can leave it all behind. Like you said, it bleeds over, can bleed over into everything. And with our phones at hand, we're just a scroll away from checking whatever and having all of that right at the tips of our fingers, and it make it really blurry. And I think we need to kind of take a look at that. And I think we have been, and it's like, how can we start to shift that and make it a lot better for ourselves, for our family, for our relationships? And what does that mean? And how can we set our businesses up that way?
I like though you use the word blurry, and it just creates this specific picture. And many people went from, like I did, I went from the corporate world to being self-employed. And when I was in the corporate world, I'm working 70 or 80 hours a week, and you're just killing yourself for somebody else. And so when you leave that environment and you go to work for yourself, well, now I'm going to work the same hours and work for myself. And it took a really long time for me to say, well, wait a second, this wasn't working before. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. The fact of that working. And I haven't had a client facing office in about 8 or 9 years, which in my industry is not normal. When COVID came around, I looked a little bit more normal. I've never been called normal, by the way, but I appeared more normal. And so it's helped me create the flexibility in my business to be more flexible with my location and my time. But now there's this other piece that I think that you bring to the table that's really important. So if you're in a situation and you do have a business and you have the flexibility and you're not stuck in an office 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, how do we create a better quality of business life and a better quality of personal life around that? And that's what you're really bringing to the table.
Yeah, I think the first thing, again, and we have to realize that we are creating it, right? Like, just like you said, you went from corporate, used to working all those hours, and then you just recreated what felt like something that you've been doing for a very long time, probably even way before you were in corporate. Like, well, if I'm not working, I'm not productive, or I'm not contributing to society, or I can't earn the money if I'm not working every moment. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff to unpack inside that. But I think what we have to think about is that we are the artists, or we are the gardeners, I call it. Like, we decide what flowers to put in our garden. We decide what to put on the canvas, and we can paint ourselves out of it if you get into that place where you're like, this, I've created this monster. And how can we start to look at that and streamline and start thinking about ways to simplify? And I know, we hear always about simplifying your business and all that, but a lot of it is about just taking a look at what really is working, what's resonating with you, what do you love, what do you not love. And it's not rocket science, but there is sometimes a little bit of shifting and tweaking and moving some things around. So I find many of us have a knack for making things very complicated for each other, for ourselves, right? And I don't know. I know we talked briefly about human design. If you're into human design, I am a projector. So I work with a lot of manifesting generators and generators who are these workhorses, who are like, I can go for 7 days a week. I can work 70 hours. As a projector, I can't do that. So it naturally felt to me, even before I knew that I was one, like, this just didn't resonate with me. I'm always looking for the shortcuts and the hacks and the easy way to do things and the better, more efficient way to do things. And when I finally realized, oh, this is why I do all this stuff, it went all the way back to when I was a kid of, oh my gosh, I've always looking for the better, easier, more efficient way to do everything. So it's
so for people that might not be aware or able to put a quick definition to the terms, what is human design?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a human design expert by any means.
Okay.
But it is just another form of, think getting to a self-awareness of
Mhm.
your they use astrology and about four other, I could be wrong, four other little ways to kind of put things together. So it is like you put in your birth date and your birth time, and it generates one of those things. But I've done a lot of them, and this one was really one that hit home for me and really gave me a lot of, oh, that's why
Mhm.
all these things fell into place for me when I realized, and I'm like, okay, well, that's great. And now I can, knowing that, move forward and use that to the ability of saying, yes, this is what I am and these are my strengths, instead of thinking I'm some weirdo that's like sitting around all the time trying to find ways to do things better. Now it makes a lot more sense going, oh yeah, this is sort of my superpower and not something to just sort of, we don't always we can't always see the things
Mhm.
that we're really good at, or the things that we can find really easy, and it could be something that other people really need, which is where I made that connection of everyone just can't do this like not the ways that I can do it. So it's like, okay, great, let me help those who cannot,
Mhm.
and those who really need it the most, who are in these situations of working way too much, or have gotten themselves into this business where they're like, I don't know how to back myself out of this, or I don't want to do this anymore, I'm getting burned
Mhm.
out, or I'm just tired, and it's not working the way that it used to, or it's not working the way that I want it to anymore. And then, offering something new and fresh, and something that feels like it can align a little bit better to where they are.
Yeah. And the importance of this really, even if you take this concept and think about what are things going to look like in the next 5, 10, 20 years from now. And for those that are listening, going to be listening to the podcast, you're also going to be hearing Denise talking about health span versus lifespan. And these two concepts really do integrate really well, because what you're bringing to people is to have a better way to help either define or redefine what they're currently doing. But what that's going to do is help them integrate other outside of work possibilities to create that better quality of life, because we can really be run down by working too much mentally, physically, and just discouraging. And
Mhm.
this is the ticket that I punched, and here we are. I just have to work this through because this is how I make money. But if you can help people reframe that mentally, because we have to really understand what we're currently doing and what really we think it's work. You already said this, but we think it's working, but somebody coming in from the outside goes, well, it might be working right now, but what if you did this? And it brings the light and the sunshine into the situation.
Exactly. And I love that you brought in the sunshine, because we talked a little bit before about, here's one way we could talk about, since I know this is like the outdoors, is the seasons. And
Mm-hmm.
we think as entrepreneurs, or just as people, that we should be running our businesses and our lives the same in January as we do in July. And that's not
Mm.
necessarily the case, because if you just, and you probably can think about this, right? Like in the wintertime, we want to cozy up, right? We want
Mm-hmm.
to pull that blanket up. We want to sit there and drink some tea. We want to just hibernate to some
Mm-hmm.
degree. And we can't necessarily do that. You can't just like say, sorry, I'm not going to run my business all winter. You could, if you set it up that way,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just, I'm just opening up some ideas here, because again, you decide how you want to do it. You could take the summers off, and it's just as easy as saying, I'm not going to work this summer. So how do I set it up? I'm going to go to the Caribbean this winter because I don't like the cold. So how do I set
Mm-hmm.
that up? So it's looking at the seasons and the energies of what's going on right outside the door,
Mm-hmm.
and not just like, well, the leaves are turning or there's new growth or whatever, but the earth has its own energies, and
Mm-hmm.
you've got this whole flow going on. And not just like raising your frequency or doing that's all part of it, but like using what's already available to us that we don't think about. And it's like the difference of putting your face down in the water and swimming upstream. Like think about it as your face is down, you can't see, you're kicking, you're pulling, you're doing all the stuff, you can't see where you're going, and you're just trying to go upstream versus, you know, sitting in a little floaty and looking around at all the beautiful scenery and just going down that little lazy river or whatever and going with that flow. It's a matter of taking on some of the energy that's already there that you're working against. And not to say that you can't, like I said, can't work during those off times, but there may be different things that you should do at different times of the year in your business. And that could make all the difference in whether it's successful or not successful. And the summer right now is very expansive energy where many entrepreneurs want to go, okay, I'm taking the summers off. And I get it. Like there's that, I want to go on vacation. I want to spend time with my children or whatever. But there's also, this is a really great time to get things done in a very short period of time that you haven't been able to get done the rest of the time. Cause it's like I can sit down and like write the rest of my book in like 3 weeks. Like it just goes really fast and it's very expansive and it's very, it's what we're meant to do, right? We go out, right, in the summer, and then you feel in the fall that pulling back a little bit and moving back into and having this time of, right, it's harvest, right? If you think about the fall as a harvest, so it's like grabbing that ripe fruit, the fruits of our labors, what we've worked on this whole spring and summer. It's time to start looking and assessing, how is this going? Let's do more of what's working. Let's let go of some things that aren't. So there's a whole thing to it. And, you know, you don't have to know all the ins and outs of it, but just know that there is something there that if you just look at nature as an example of how things go, we can't go 24/7, 365 days a week. If nature can't do it, we shouldn't be doing it, not in that way. So we can take some cues from nature and just like the ancient rhythms of the earth and the way, you know, indigenous peoples and peoples for thousands of years, farmers and all of that worked with the seasons and the outdoors.
No, it makes so much sense. And especially in the winter time, that is that time of, if you're thinking about this as far as gardening and things that grow, that winter time is the time for the ground to rest and begin in getting ready to begin anew. So if you're able to take those, and the days are shorter, take that time to possibly assess your business. Where do you want your business to go, or how do you want your business to grow, and have these thought processes and give yourself permission to step back and say, I'm getting ready for a new season. And what does this really look like in my business?
It's about
And
preparing. It's like, it's like
exactly.
preparing that soil, preparing for spring and summer, right?
What do you, when you're talking to people about this, is there resistance for this type of change, or is there relief that this could happen? I would think that for me, the resistance piece would come at first, but what do you find? It's interesting.
When I brought this concept up, this 4-day weekends about in 2023, I really got the resistance. I was like, this is going to be it. You know, this is my Oprah moment. I've got this great thing and everybody's going to jump on board and it's going to be great. And I got a lot of deer in the headlights kind of, well, what do you mean? What would we do if we don't work? You know, what are we going to do? And it was, oh, I have to work for my money. It was all those sort of limiting beliefs and things about, well, I just don't see how that's even possible. And a lot of that, but I find, and it was like, ooh, you know, I pulled back in my own business because that's when I was like ready to do it. I thought I was, and then I pulled way back. I'm like, oh, I guess people aren't ready for this yet, or maybe I'm not meant to do this. And I went back and kept teaching about courses and helping people create courses. And then it's like, no, the universe is like, no, you are supposed to be doing this. And now it's a completely different thing. Now I've got a little different spin. Now I'm talking about the new earth, a new earth entrepreneur. And I'm getting a lot of relief because I feel like back then, maybe things were still going okay for people. And now I feel like it's not just business, right? We don't have to look but 5 seconds outside to see that things are crumbling and these old regimes are breaking away. And I think business now is also going through the same thing. It feels like it kind of has been for the last year or two, but now it's like we were hanging on trying to hang on, like, let's just keep it going. But I think it can't. So it's like, okay, people are scared of what do I do next, or how is it going to look? And again, like you said, who knows what it's going to look like in 10 years, but all we can do is go, this is what we could start to be, this bridge over to. Here's what feels right for me and what feels right for my clients, and the way I'm helping them bridge that gap or bridge the new way. Here are some ways to start to shift without just shutting everything down and starting over, right? Most people can't just do that, but how can we start to make these small changes so you don't have to just totally scrap everything and start over? Sell off the business and go, start some margarita shack. It's like, okay, how can we just take what we have now and start making some changes to move into these new, some of the new things that I think are coming. And again, I don't have all the answers. I have a crystal ball, but I can't look and say, okay, let's see what's going to happen. Even like 2 years from now, I think things are changing a lot and will change, but we can start to move in the direction of authenticity, of love, of natural cycles, of stepping outdoors, and just getting back in touch with our roots and getting grounded. And it feels like that's all we can do right now, because everything else is so chaotic that it's like, this is one thing we can do that's pretty simple. Just go outside, take off your shoes, right? Get into nature and just be still and think and see what comes to you. Let your intuition be your guide. I feel like the days of 6-figure blueprints and all of that is coming to a close, and no one knows better than you and your guides, your intuition, whatever you want to call it, as to what's next for you. And if we can just get in touch with what's going on inside ourselves, then we'll be guided for the next step.
It's challenging when you are in that hamster wheel of business to remember or find or listen or hear that you have this intuition piece, because it gets shut down and it gets really pounded down so that it's not able to come up and make that, not able to be noticed.
Yeah.
And that in itself is challenging, and making space for the intuition to regrow, if you will.
Yeah. It's a practice, just like it's like exercising, right? Or anything else. But I find that it actually is a time saver, though it feels like, oh, I don't have an hour to meditate. I mean, you don't have to do that. You can just take a walk into nature and just be still for 10 minutes. I can go into my garden and just weed or cut flowers, and I feel refreshed, and I maybe get a great idea. And if we just have a little more space, then I think it can just be an inkling, or I feel better about this than that. And so go in the direction of what gets you excited and what feels right. You pretty much know your gut instincts. And even though I know we're busy and all that stuff, everyone has made those mistakes and go, oh, I should have listened to my little voice or whatever. Right. And we get it. So it's not about like doing some big long thing, but I think it's about just starting to trust that you're the best coach for yourself. You're the guru, you know better. Your higher self or guides, universe, God, whatever you want to call it, knows the next step for you. And if you're feeling like I need some advice, I don't know where to go, go with.
And then when you're doing those things, getting outside, taking a walk, or weeding the garden, just shutting your brain down and concentrating on something very simple as that, it does allow those thoughts to come up. And I think one of the important things to do is in order to create or strengthen that intuition muscle, is to be able to remember what those thoughts were. Because I know everybody out there has had these thoughts, and then 2 seconds later they're gone. And it was really important, and it could have been the thing, but all of a sudden it just went away because, I don't know, you picked up your phone and you were scrolling and your mind goes blank.
I love that you brought that up, because I have this problem. I think it's our like squirrel brains protecting us. It's that like, keep me small and safe, because I will have this whole thing that I'll talk. I use my audio recorder on my phone.
That was where I was headed with this.
Yes.
Yes.
Because if I don't, I'm like, what did
Mhm.
I just say? Like, what happened? It's almost like I'm channeling, and I probably am. And then I'm like, I had this great idea. And like the next day, I'm like, what was it? It's so
Mm.
bizarre. It's like this
Yeah.
amnesia.
I had
And
this really great presentation, like the first 20 minutes of this presentation in my head, it was exactly, I never thought of it before. It was exactly what I needed. I didn't write it down. I just wrote a note about it and I didn't use my voice recorder. And then I can't tell you now what it was, but boy, did it feel good when it came up. And
yeah,
the voice recorder is, I talk about pulling out your phone and scrolling, but actually use this thing as the tool to help your intuition muscle build and say it quickly. Talk into a text to yourself. Use the voice recorder. Grab a pencil and have a pencil and a piece of paper handy. But if you're in the garden, you might not have that, but you've got your phone and take a verbal note and come back to it. And
use
then
the shower
come.
notes. Do you have I have the shower notes.
Oh, no, but I've heard about those.
Yes, those
Yes.
are fabulous. I get a lot of great ideas while I'm in the shower, and I have the shower notes. And so many times I wrote them down, and then I'm like, oh my God, I forgot all about that. But I've got that note I put on my desk because
Hmm.
it is like this almost like sabotaging amnesia that happens where our other brains are like, ooh, that sounds too radical, or
Yeah.
we don't want to let her do that. Let's bring her back down here. She's just going to forget that.
Yeah. And so when you're working with somebody and they're going through the stages, what are you noticing on the outside looking in of the changes that are happening for them?
Yeah, I think it's a gradual thing. It doesn't just
Hmm.
happen overnight. But I
Hmm.
think once we start to get some um I think we start with the practical first, like how can we make them some space in their business
Hmm.
so that you have more time? And it's like a snowball effect. So we like, how can we get you back 3 to 5 hours a week in your business? And that doesn't sound like a lot, but maybe it does, depending on if you're working. And like during that time, then you have more time, like you said, to work on your business or to sit quietly and come up with the next ideas. Because, like we said, we always come up with the ideas we're on vacation or in the shower or in the garden. But if we have that space and time, then, like, oh, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm wasting my time. We are very busy, and it's hard for us to turn around and look behind us and say, you know what? This newsletter is going nowhere. Those reels aren't doing anything for me. So it's like
Hmm.
taking a look at these pieces first and go, what's moving the needle? What's not? What do I love? What do I despise? And kind of
Hmm.
work through some of that so that it's like, okay, now we've opened up the space. Now we can have the time to go out into nature,
Hmm.
to see about tapping into intuition. I help them with that if they're unfamiliar on how to tap in and listen and explore. And let's look at your business. How can we set things up in a little bit more a cyclical, seasonal, type thing that fits them? Not everybody's going to fit into that. When is the best time they work? Are they like a night owl or a morning lark? Like, I think it's very important to understand yourself and the ways that you work the best. So you don't
Hmm.
have to work 8 to 5 if you work better at 10 o'clock at night. Like, you can do whatever you need to do and capitalize and maximize on your energy at its fullest so that you get
Hmm.
things done faster and don't have to work 10 hours. You can get it done in 2 hours instead. And so it's like just honing in onto some of that. And people are very much like light bulbs start going off, like, oh
Hmm.
my gosh. And then they see this other place that they can do, and they can see this other place. So it does very much snowball.
And I would think there's a reflective side to this too that's important to talk about because if you have opened up 3 or 5 hours in your week or whatever that happens to be, that you don't turn around and feel guilty about that time,
Or
that you
filling it
weren't
with just,
working.
people will tend to fill it back up with other stuff. And
Correct.
it's a habit, right? It's a habit of like, oh, well, if I'm not working, like I remember when I started taking Fridays off, it felt like I was playing hooky from school. I'm
Hmm.
like, I should be working.
Right.
And so I started a flower farm. So I have like only got about a half an acre here. And I am on my side hustle is I'm a cut flower farmer. So on Fridays and Mondays, I do my flower farming. So it's like something that I am just doing as I love it anyway. I love
Hmm.
flowers. And so it's like this other little thing. So it gets me outside. It gives me something to do that's creative and that I love. And is about bringing in more creative pursuits or whatever they've been wanting to do this is your time. If they need something that has to be filled, go
Mhm.
paint, go do yoga, do whatever, go write your book or whatever you wanted to do. So
And I think it would be a good idea to define what that, so if you've created this space, define how it's going to be used, because otherwise it could end up being that you're going to find yourself scrolling on your phone because you weren't working. And then
yeah,
all of a sudden it's wasted time or incredibly inefficient, or you're not being able to refuel yourself, because the whole idea was, what are you going to do to help yourself be better as a better person, a better whatever that is, but don't fill it with junk.
yeah, it's a practice, like we said. And especially if you've been working this way or living this way for a very long time, you don't just snap your fingers and suddenly your whole thing has changed, because it's
Yeah,
easy to slide back into those
sure.
old habits of like, oh,
Habits.
suddenly you cleared your schedule, but you took on 2 extra clients. And now those spots are filled with something else instead of moving into a program or some kind of a leveraged model or some other way that gave you more of a time off, or teaching or coaching in a different way, or whatever it is. There's always different ways, and there's so much new technology and things that are out now, and ways to do things that weren't even here 5 years ago, let alone 10 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
so that you don't have to be a slave to your desk and chained to your desk, and can really do so many fabulous options that maybe you just don't think about because you're stuck in that rut, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the beauty of having somebody from the outside looking in and being able to show what's actually there, but make it more obvious. Now, are there specific types of business or entrepreneurs that you find yourself working with or guided to?
I work mainly with solopreneurs or someone who has a really small team. I'm not working with large businesses because I don't know that as much. I'm more about
Mhm.
the person who can make their own decisions and run their own thing.
Sure.
And I do work with a lot of coaches, therapists, consultants, but I've worked with all kinds of different people in different industries over the years. And it really doesn't matter, because it's just about reshaping the way you want to run your business, and then giving, like you said, I've never really had a business where I've worked tons of hours, so I'm not
Mhm.
apt to fall back into that. And my brain is always like, oh, well, if that doesn't work for you, we've got 3 other options over here. So there's always another way, a thing to try and go, okay, well, this didn't work, let's go with this. And so I'm always on it. My brain is always working to make it even easier and better for them. So it really works. And they just have to be willing and a little bit spiritually minded too, to tap into the magic, the woo, the intuition, and all of that, as we're bringing that. But I think more and more people are open to that these days.
Yeah, definitely more open
And
to
it
that.
also
Or
brings like a fun aspect of like, ooh, this is kind of cool. Let's flip a card today or whatever, right? Let's have something that is a reminder, or these little tools and things that we can do that helps them remember, oh, I'm supposed to be tapping into my intuition. Oh, I'm supposed to be taking this time to sit quietly or go outside or whatever it is. So it's fun to add in a little bit of that, those little tools to, as reminders and to help them.
I think this is fantastic, and taking this new earth model and working in with the seasons, and it just really, it makes sense. It feels good, and it's going to help you grow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
How did
just a new take. It's a
Mhm.
fresh approach, and it's not really fresh because it's been around for thousands of years, but
But
we're
it's
just
a fresh
coming back
approach
around.
to mhm, exactly. Now, how do people get in touch with you, Donna?
Yeah, you can just go to my website, which is donnaashton.com. You can catch me over on LinkedIn, or my podcast, which I had said, which is 4 Day
Let's talk
Weekend.
about that quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I've got that. I've got over two, like I think I'm at episode 230, so I've been doing it for a couple of years, even
Congratulations.
though it's changed a little bit, but there's tons of episode and content over there you can listen to for sure.
And what is your podcast called?
4 Day Weekends.
4 day weekend. So Donna, thank you. Thank you so much. Check out our podcast, check out our website, donnaashton.com, and just ask, and you'll never know what you're going to receive. So thank you so much for your time and being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening today. Today's show is sponsored by Seaside Solutions, my financial services company. As a business owner, It's easy to be pulled in many different directions, and often taking care of yourself plummets to the bottom of the list. For me, I find myself outside to reground. My time outdoors helps me manage my day more effectively and be more present for my clients. Through this, Discover Rising Tides was born. At Seaside Solutions, we truly believe that education is the foundation of financial wellness. Our primary focus is to provide guidance that is designed to help you achieve your long-term financial goals and visions. Working with a plan allows space for doing more things that you love, like being outside to make the inside better. If I can help you create or realign your plan, or if you would like to be added to my weekly newsletter, please let me know. This week's topic was 5 ways to set more achievable goals. Your referral means the big, beautiful world to me, and if I can help, please let me know. And thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.